In this video, I talk about where I buy my comic books, especially during the pandemic. Stay tuned. What's going on, guys? Justin here, aka No Good Comics, and welcome back to the channel. Before we get into today's video, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that little bell so you can be notified of any of my live streams or any of my other videos that are uploaded in the future. With that being said, today's topic that I want to talk about is where I buy my comics during the pandemic. I've talked about this a little bit before on some of my live streams, and I wanted to mention that especially for new comic, this is really more focused on new comic books. When it comes to, obviously this pandemic that's continuing to go on right now, I have not really been able to go to any local comic shops. I have not really gone to any stores other than what's needed for groceries and for work purposes. And even that, I'm working from home for the most part now. So just to give you an idea, I'm basically home all the time in terms of trying to be safe and not go out unless I absolutely need to. So with that being said, I wanted to just share some of the, strategies or some of the different approaches that I go about getting my new comics for New Comic Book Day. And so one of the main things that I do with my LCS is, I still buy from my LCS. Even though I don't go there physically, I buy everything on through Instagram. If I know books that I want to have before the day that they're released, I will message my local comic shop and let them know, hey, I'm looking for these 5 books, and I'll send like screenshots usually, and they'll let me know like immediately, like, hey, yeah, we have these, or hey, no, we don't have these. The reason I wanted to have this as kind of a topic or subject to go over is I feel like I've seen a lot of people talk about like, oh, my LCS sold out, and so I couldn't get this copy of whatever, and that stinks. Or I went to my LCS and they were all bought up before I could get any. It wasn't on my pull list, and so now I got to go to eBay and spend a fortune on eBay just to get this comic. And so I personally have not had to deal with any of those issues, and one of the main reasons is essentially I have multiple local comic shops, and I use the word local because that's what an LCS is, but I have many LCSs that are not actually local to me. So my biggest advice would be when it comes to stuff like this, and especially if you're trying to get the new books, hot books that are just coming out, or if there's only so many that are printed and people are just buying them before you get to the shop, I highly recommend to have access to multiple comic shops. And not just have access, but to support and to actually build a relationship with these LCSs. And again, I say LCS, it's not necessarily a local shop to me. I use a few different LCSs over in California. Meanwhile, I'm in here in New Jersey. I have my main LCS that I go to in New Jersey, and then I also have one in New York City that I go to, or I don't physically go to, but that I reach out to in case there are some sort of if there's a book that I want to get a copy of, or if I want to get multiple copies of a book. This kind of allows me to do that in a way that I'm not, just going into one store and being somebody who just scoops up a bunch of the same book and, doesn't leave any for anyone else. I'm a firm believer in you want more people, you want to leave some for other people to buy, right? So I was never really a fan of like the idea of buying like 20 of one book from one shop. And especially if they're like low on stock, you want to let the people in that shop also be able to buy from there. So this is a good way to kind of space it out. Buy one here, buy one wherever you need it. And then, like I said, even if you're just trying to buy one copy, it's really good to have multiple sources so that if that day comes where your local comic shop is sold out early, or Diamond didn't get their books delivered to them on time, or something happened in shipping, then at least you have other avenues. You have other sources that you can go to. So and when I say, again, I mean not just that they're sources per se, but that you actually build relationships with these LCSs. I've talked about this in the past too, to get close with your LCSs, the owners, get to know them, have them get to know you, be friends with them. I know this is probably harder to do now because of the fact that we have, or you can't really hang out in shops for long periods of time, and you're not, technically not supposed to be like hanging out with groups of people. But when things do go back to normal and you do have that opportunity, if you don't already, build a relationship with your LCSs. Let them know who you are. Let them know what you're interested in. Support them. If they're doing something local, or, they're having an event, or they're doing something for charity, or they're streaming something on Instagram or YouTube, support them and shout them out, or give them credit when you do your videos and you do your unboxings and say, hey, I was just over at my LCS and I got XYZ books, and shout out to this book, to this store. Help them out and spread the word. And with that will come, building relationships and getting to know the owners and the other people that might work there on a regular basis. And then, of course, from that, they'll start to understand like what you're into, what you're looking for. They'll start thinking about you if there's a special book that might be coming out. Oh, this new X-Men book, Justin really likes X-Men. Let me reach out and make sure if he plans on getting a copy, I can put aside a copy. Things like that. Even back issues. That's another thing where I've had local comic shops hold certain back issues for me because they knew I was interested, or I mentioned it to them in the past, saying, hey, if you ever get this in stock, give me a heads up. I'm really looking for a certain copy or whatever. So it's always good to have those relationships as well. And then basically what I'm doing is amplifying that with other local comic shops. So like I said, I have one in Sacramento that I reach out to. I have one in Anaheim that I reach out to, and I have one here in New York City that I reach out to as well, all separate from my local comic shop, which is Zap Comics over in New Jersey. So that, just to give you perspective, like if Zap runs out of something or doesn't have something, or they don't carry maybe a unique independent book or something like that, I have 3 other shops that I could like check in with and see, hey, are you guys getting this, or do you have this? Do you have a copy of this? Can you put one aside for me? And go from there. The only downer, and it's not even a downer, it's just part of like the deal, right? Is that you got to pay for shipping. And that's something that I've kind of just looked over as it is what it is, especially in a time of a pandemic, where, again, for myself, I'm not going out if I don't need to. I am more than happy to, pay for shipping when it comes to buying my books. And then the other negative, I guess, would be that you don't get your books right on the day of. But that kind of leads me into why I buy digital books. And this is not a video where I'm going to be talking a lot about digital or anything, but that's partially why, another reason why I'm a fan of digital, is that I can have the book in my hand that morning before anyone even goes to their LCS. Technically, I could wake up at 5, 6, 7 in the morning and read my books that just came out on Wednesday or just came out on Tuesday, and just have them. So I kind of do both, where I read the digital copy, and then if I want the physical one, I still buy it. I just order it from one of my LCSs, and I'm not in any real rush to get that book. So that's kind of my mindset on some of this stuff, where, again, I speak to this because I see a lot of people who say, hey, I missed this. I missed out on this book. My LCS sold out, or my LCS never got their shipment, and now I'm not going to get this, or whatever the case may be. I just always think that it's good to have multiple sources or multiple avenues to go to make sure that you get the books that you're looking to get. So if you don't already do this, I recommend looking into it. The other cool thing is you're supporting other local comic shops. So, especially at a time like this where the pandemic has really hurt a lot of small businesses, this is a perfect time where, if you can afford it and you can help out in certain areas, reach out to these local comic shops. They will appreciate your business, obviously. I mean, it's a challenge enough to have to, just continue to try to get customers in the door and, sell as much as they did before the pandemic. Like, a lot of the numbers are down for a lot of stores and a lot of businesses in general. So they'll certainly appreciate, someone reaching out that's, from another state or across the United States that's interested in a book or multiple books and are willing to pay for shipping. So my advice, start reaching out to more LCSs. Maybe you start with friends of yours that are maybe on Instagram or part of the YouTube community, and say, hey, what are some reliable shops, or what's your LCS, or anybody have some great LCSs that they use. And, if they have some positive things to say about it, maybe that's your new LCS, where you kind of reach out to them and say, hey, I'm looking to start, look, you could even start a pull list. That was another thing I want to mention, was one of my shops that I reach out to is over in Anaheim. I have a pull list with them. I don't even have a pull list with my local comic shop, the one here in New Jersey. But they had a deal where if you set up a pull list, you get 20% off. and I wanted to obviously, use up the most as I can in terms of bang for my buck when it comes to, with shipping and everything else when I'm buying from somebody. So I really could use that 20% off. So it's really nice of them to let me know that, hey, if you create a pull list with us, then you'll get 20% off all new books. So I'm like, great. So I have a pull list with them. I have a couple books on that pull list. But other than that, I'm not a big fan of pull lists just because I don't always like being locked down to certain books. But for this purpose of getting like 20% off, I thought it was worth it. Also, it's for Daredevil, which I'm always going to buy Daredevil. So that was one of the books that's on my pull list. So just a couple things to kind of consider or think about when you are in those situations where you don't have a source or the source that you normally go to sells out. If you can't get something in time or like I said, if the shipment doesn't come through. The other thing that I want to talk about in terms of another source is not just local comic shops, but also having shops that you buy from, or not shops, but like vendors that are on Instagram, or even just like private sellers. I feel like there are so many great Instagram private sellers or vendors or whatever you want to call them that do claim sales, that do live auctions, and they do post they post stuff and just you can claim books in the comments, things like that. There are so many different processes and different shops and vendors that do this kind of thing that if you are looking for another source, that's a perfect way to go about too. And I've talked about this in the past, the idea of like buying from Instagram and is it safe and all this other things. I'll put a link to the description below about a video that I talked about that in previous videos. But ultimately, open up to consideration of doing something like this, because it definitely is a good way to, again, make sure or ensure that you get the books that you're looking to get, especially on New Comic Book Day, especially if they're a hot book or that there's only so many that are out there, or if it's some new rare indie title that not a lot of shops got, things like that. It's great to just have those extra sources. And again, Instagram is like, it's been my home. Instagram's been there for me in so many different ways in terms of the people I meet, the vendors that I connect with, the stores, the LCSs that I connect with. That's all where a lot of my connections and relationship building has started. So if you're not buying on Instagram, I highly recommend looking into it. Obviously, you want to check the sources, make sure that they are reliable sources, that they are legitimate LCSs, or that they're legitimate vendors or private sellers. And there are multiple ways to go about doing that. And that's something I talk about in my other videos. But you can check for like reliable past customers and ask them their experience and things like that. But yeah, so these are just some ideas. I thought I'd just put a little video together to talk a little bit about it. And if you are struggling with, missing out with your LCS, or if they don't always necessarily get some of the unique titles or the rare indie books that come out once in a while, or you're trying to get an incentive that they only have one copy of and they sell out right away because someone, went there right in the morning when the store first opened. If you're missing out in those ways, then I would say definitely start reaching out to more LCSs and consider them to be LCSs. Because like I said, I call them LCSs, even though one's in Sacramento, one's in Anaheim, one's in New York City. Like they're all spread out all over the place, and they're my LCSs. And more importantly, they're great people. They're all people I've gotten to know. They've gotten to know me. We have that relationship, that connection to where I can give them the heads up on what I'm interested in. They think of me if they see a book that they think I'd be interested in, all that kind of stuff. I support them and try to support their live streams and share my, give them shout outs and things like that when I do unboxings and YouTube email calls and things like that. So I definitely would say to, go out of your way. Start reaching out to more sources that you can start to build relationships with, and have those other extra avenues so that you don't miss out on that cool new incentive book, or just that popular book that people are buying right off the shelves right when it first comes out, and you don't have to go too crazy. The last thing I want to add is that the third way that I do this is I have so many people in the community. And this is probably just an automatic. I'm sure many of you have this type of access or this type of relationship, but just friends in the community who you can rely on to like message and say, hey man, I'm not going to be able to get this, or I can't go to my LCS. Can you see if you have an extra copy at your LCS? Can you pick one up for me? Or if you know somebody who has something that they have an extra copy of, can you let me know? I'll buy it from them. I'll pay for their shipping, whatever it is that I got to do. But let me know. Give me a heads up. And I've had so many great connections and great relationships with people in the community that have done that for me. And I've tried to provide the same thing as well. So, and if you're watching this and you know me, we're friends, and I have talked to you before, if there's anything that I could ever get you guys, let me know. And I'm more than happy to see if any of my LCSs have an extra copy that you might be looking for. So just something else to keep in mind that, so you have your multiple LCSs, you have your private sellers and your vendors on Instagram or any other platform, Facebook, YouTube, and then you have your community. Use your community, reach out to your community, reach out to the relationships that you have and say, look, hey, I missed out on this book. Is there any way that your LCS might have an extra copy? Could you see for me, or could you send them my way, or give me the link and I'll ask them, or, whatever the approach is. But at least you have those other options and you're not just stuck with, oh man, my LCS, it's sold out. Now I got to go to eBay. Now I got to pay 5 times what the book was selling for when it first came out. All that other stuff. This is a way that can save you a lot of stress, a lot of time, and a lot of money if you do it right and if you approach it in the right way. So with that being said, I have a question for you guys, and hopefully you'll leave a comment in the comment section below. My question is, how many LCSs, local comic shops, do you use in order to get your new comic books from New Comic Book Day, or back issue bins, or any other collectibles that you might be after during this time, especially during a pandemic? Would love to know your answer to that. Otherwise, please like the video if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and hit that little notification bell, as I mentioned earlier. And again, I appreciate you guys taking the time to kind of watch this video. I know this is really just more of a talking head, more of a podcasty kind of video, but I just wanted to share some of these thoughts, some of these tips. And, if you're newer to collecting, or if you never did this approach before, hopefully this helps. Feel free to share this video with somebody if you know that they could hear, if they could take some advice from it. And yeah, that's about it. So I appreciate your time. And until next time, I will talk to you later.